Try to show. So this is a pin from the Rudder Trim knob, and the problem I'm having is the rudder trim is not working, and so I'm trying to put a new pulley on it. And so what we have done, try to show this. I've stuck a tool here through this piece. So basically this little piece right here lifts up, and then that pin slides through underneath, and then that piece slides back down and holds the pin from coming out of that shaft. So right now, to put the pin back in, we're going to have to slide that piece up, slide this piece through, and then slide the pin in from the other side so that we can get all this back together. And if you look up in here, there's the pulley that I'm trying to get to. But before I get the pulley out, I've got to get all this other stuff out of the way. This is the handle, and you've got this piece here that slides up and down. And then you can see, if I slide it up a little bit, there's where the pin was slid through. So, and then that piece is on a spring, so it moves up out of the way. So this is the entire trim tab assembly that came out of the cockpit. It isn't out yet because I'm still fighting with it. But essentially what we have here is we have a pulley. It's like a guide pulley that the cable runs through after it leaves. This is the handle here that you're turning to do your trim. This is a rudder trim. It has a pin that comes through it. This is the part that I'm having a terrible time getting out. This is a separate assembly here. This is the trim indicator, and so basically we've got a nylon spacer that goes on top of the pulley. It's not connected to the pulley though, so I'm a little confused as to how this thing would even work, because you can actually spin this separate. As you can see here, you can spin it separate from the actual pulley. I'd almost think they're supposed to be attached. But this pin here will remove, you take this cotter pin out, that pin will slide through and let this whole assembly come out. Then what we have here is this piece goes back on like this. It lines up with those two holes. And then, well, actually it's come off the pulley, so that's interesting. Piece has actually come out. Get my hand out of the way. But this piece here, that you can see it, that little arm slides in those grooves, so you can't get this piece out unless you take the pin out and slide that pulley out. But since it's come off the cable, I won't have to. But I think I'm gonna pull all this apart and sand it down and put the fresh coat of primer on it while I've got it out. So that is that piece. And then I'm stuck with this problem. And what I'm afraid has happened, looking up in here, it looks like there's a pin that goes, it actually was screwed in. But if you look at one side of the cable, you can see in there. You can see all the way to the shaft, and the other side, it looks like something is stuck, like it broke off inside the pulley there, and they left it in there and put another piece on the other side. But I'm thinking that that's got this whole assembly locked up, because I need to get this pin out, this shaft out, and it is not cooperating at the moment. I forgot to video putting the trim back in here, but essentially the pin, I explained how this thing kind of pulls down, and the pin goes up in here to hold the handle on. I put a new pulley on the actual mechanism up here. The other pulley that was back here for this trim indicator, the little rubber pad that I mentioned that ought to be attached to the pulley itself, it isn't attached, but it does actually work. So I guess just from the friction in the thing is all that it needed. But that all is working. The pulley that was in here that I was having the hard time getting the thing out, it ended up having a threaded bolt, like a threaded rod that someone had tried to screw through the pulley and the shaft, and it had broken off. And so I ended up having to drill that out to get the pulley out, or to get this shaft to come out so that I could get the pulley off of the whole mechanism. So I got a new pulley. We had to drill out the pulley, the keyway for the pulley, because the new pulley that I got didn't have a hole in it. So we drilled that out, put a new pin in, put the whole mechanism back up in here, and reassembled everything. So everything is working now. And then back in the back, the cable that comes through the whole mechanism has about 10 pounds of pressure that you have to torque it or tighten it up to. So that was just a matter of adjusting the turnbuckles back in the tail section. And then once you buckle those down, everything worked fine. So it ended up being a fairly easy fix. The complication was just that pin. Well, partially the fact that I didn't know how it all came apart, but primarily because the pin that was in it ended up not really being a pin. It was a threaded rod that had been broken off. So that kind of complicated the whole process. But once I got that out, everything else went pretty smoothly.